My husband and I have been financing my children's college education for years, but their behavior has become increasingly spoiled and entitled. They have been calling me by derogatory terms and have been caught selling items they were not authorized to sell. This is a lengthy narrative, but I assure you it is worth reading. I have been contemplating this for weeks and seek an external perspective. There is much to unpack here. At the age of 38, I have been married to my husband Neil for over 15 years. Our marriage has been characterized by a smooth journey, navigating through life's challenges with relative ease. Together, we have established a fulfilling life with thriving careers and a comfortable home. However, there has always been a sense of incompleteness. The only significant storm in our marriage was our struggle with fertility due to a medical condition I prefer not to discuss. Essentially, my reproductive system decided to go on strike, leaving us unable to conceive. It was a devastating blow. Neil and I had always envisioned a large family, filling our home with laughter and the chaos of children. We spent countless hours discussing nursery decorations, debating baby names, and imagining family vacations with our future children. Upon receiving the news, it felt as though the ground had fallen out from beneath us. We experienced all the stages of grief, including denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and ultimately, a reluctant acceptance. However, we were determined not to surrender without a struggle. We explored every fertility treatment available, which left me feeling like a hormonal mess. Neil deserves a meal for his patience during that time. We also tried alternative therapies, including consuming strange concoctions and attempting unconventional practices, but I won't delve into the specifics. We explored experimental treatments, but the risks outweighed the potential benefits. Month after month, our hopes were raised only to be dashed by negative pregnancy tests, each one feeling like a personal failure. I acknowledged that it was irrational, but I couldn't help feeling like my body had betrayed me. After enduring years of heartbreak and incurring significant expenses, we were forced to accept the reality that biological children were not in our future. It was time to consider alternative options. Adoption seemed like the natural next step. We still had so much love to give, and there are so many children out there who need homes. We dedicated ourselves to researching the process, attending informational sessions, and consulting with other adoptive parents. However, let me tell you about our experience with the adoption process. It was a bureaucratic nightmare that would make coffee weep. We explored the IT sector, but the overwhelming bureaucracy, lengthy waiting lists, and inherent uncertainties made it seem unfeasible. Additionally, both Neil and I have demanding careers. I am a corporate lawyer, and Neil is a software engineer at a startup. Our professions entail long hours, high stress, and limited flexibility. We did not wish to adopt a child only to be absent parents, shuttling them between daycare and after-school programs while we worked 60-hour weeks. The more we considered this, the more we realized that perhaps the universe was trying to convey something. Perhaps we were not destined to be traditional parents. It was a difficult pill to swallow, but we made the challenging decision to remain childless. Instead, we decided to channel our parental instincts into helping needy children in our community. We believed that if we couldn't have children of our own, we could at least make a difference in the lives of other children who needed support. The situation became complicated when Neil's sister, whom we shall refer to as Fiona, divorced when our children were young. Her ex-husband was a problematic individual characterized by abusive and alcoholic behaviors. Consider every cliché of a bad Lifetime movie condensed into one. That's Fiona's story. The divorce was tumultuous, to say the least. Fiona found herself struggling to make ends meet, attempting to rebuild her life while simultaneously caring for her young children. The child support he receives is barely enough to keep the lights on, let alone cover all the expenses that come with raising 3 growing children. Fiona works 2 jobs. She is a teacher by day and a waitress by night, but it's still a struggle. That's why Neil and I decided to step in and help fund her children's education. We believed that this was a way to make a real difference in their lives, to provide them with opportunities they might not otherwise have. Additionally, it felt good to be able to assist our family. Little did we anticipate the challenges ahead. Monica, age 23, is the eldest and the only one who has made me question our decision to assist. 2. Joe 2M, the DDL child, and the start of our problems. 3. Justin 4, the youngest, and as you'll see, the one who really pushed me over the edge. Let me tell you about Monica first because she's the bright spot in this whole mess. This girl is an absolute rock star. From the moment we started helping with her education, SHE took full advantage of every opportunity that came away. Monica was always a good student, but with the pressure of financial worries over her shoulders, SHE really flourished. She graduated high school as Victoria, securing a full scholarship to a prestigious university, where she excelled, earning Dean's List honors every semester, internships at esteemed companies, and achieving remarkable success. At the age of 23, she has secured a position at a leading multinational corporation, demonstrating exceptional performance in her career. Every time I think about her, I can't help but feel a sense of pride. She is smart, hardworking, and most importantly, grateful for the opportunity she has been given. Monica never forgot the help we provided. She still calls us regularly not to ask for money, but to update us on her life and thank us for our support. She even insisted on treating us to dinner to celebrate her first major promotion, expressing her desire to repay us for all our efforts. Witnessing her success almost makes the challenges with her brothers seem worthwhile. Now, let's move on to the boys. Where do I even begin? Joe and Justin were once bright children, always asking questions and eager to learn. Joe had a passion for mathematics and enjoyed constructing intricate structures with his Legos. Justin was the family artist, constantly doodling in notebooks and inventing fantastical tales. However, at some point, they lost their spark. It was as if they had entered their teenage years and decided to adopt the role of entitled brats with their life's calling. I don't know if it was the divorce, peer pressure, or just plain laziness, but the bright, curious boys we once knew were replaced by two early, ungrateful teenagers. Joe was the first to show signs of trouble, starting with small issues like missing assignments and talking back to teachers. Initially, we attributed IT's behavior to typical teenage rebellion. However, as time passed, it became evident that this was more than just a phase. His grades began to decline, and he started associating with a group that, quite frankly, gave me the creeps. These were children who seemed to believe that rules did not apply to them, that the world had something to say just for existing. We attempted to intervene. Neil and I met with Joe numerous times, seeking to comprehend the situation and determine how we could provide assistance. Each conversation concluded with Joe rolling his eyes and assuring us that he had everything under control. Fiona was of little assistance. Overwhelmed with work and family responsibilities, she tended to overlook the boys' issues. They believed he would outgrow it, but the issue escalated when Joe completed high school. Neil and I sat down with him to discuss his college plans, anticipating a conversation about the universities he was considering or the majors he was interested in. Instead, he had the audacity to tell us he didn't want to go to college. No, he wanted us to give him the money we had set aside for his tuition in cash. I am a strong advocate for entrepreneurship. If the child had presented a well-thought-out business plan, I might have been more receptive to the idea. However, when we inquired about the type of business he intended to start, his response was quite vague, suggesting an online venture without a concrete plan, market research, or any solid foundation. The expectation that we would provide substantial funding for this endeavor led to a conversation that went something like this. Joe, could you please clarify the nature of the business you wish to start? Joe's venture is an online endeavor that might not be comprehensible to you. Neil, we are subject to significant taxation. Joe, it's like a platform for influencers and stuff. Me okay? And what would this platform do? Joe, connect people, make money. The situation is complex. Neo, have you conducted any market research? Who are your competitors? Joe rolls his eyes. You sound like my economics teacher. This is not a typical business. It's more organic. Investing in organic or not. We require additional information before making a decision. Joe, this is my money. You promised to finance my education. This is my education. And we went round and round. It felt like talking to a brick wall. If brick walls could roll their eyes dramatically, Neil and I were scheduled to put it mildly. We informed Joe that we required some time to consider the matter. You'd think we told them we were canceling Christmas. He began pressuring us for money, as if we had voted for him. His sense of entitlement was overwhelming. After weeks of negotiation, we decided to draw the line. We informed Joe that while we supported his ambition, we were comfortable investing in a business venture with no clear direction. The reaction was akin to a 20-year-old throwing a tantrum, which was quite something to witness. He did not confront us directly. No, that would require actual courage. Instead, he went crying to his mother and grandmother, spinning some story about how we were crushing his dreams and going back on our word. His argument was that the money we had set aside for his education was his money, and he should be able to do whatever he wanted with it. I apologize, but it is not customary for a gift to come with the condition that the recipient has no say in its use. This is not how university works. Fiona and my mother-in-law attempted to persuade us to reconsider our decision. They accused us of wavering in our commitment to support their children, suggesting that in their view, supporting someone's education equates to mindlessly providing funds for any ill-conceived idea they propose. My mother-in-law, with her heart full of love, has always had a blind spot when it comes to her grandchildren. In her eyes, Joe and Justin can do no wrong. She would even commend them for their skills, even if it meant watching them set fire to her house. The guilt-tripping escalated to an unprecedented level. We received tearful phone calls, detailed emails about the destruction of our family, and even a PowerPoint presentation outlining why we should invest in our future. It was exhausting. Neil Blessing maintained his stance, emphasizing that while we would be supportive from the sidelines, we would not financially support his venture. We also reaffirmed our commitment to covering his college tuition. Should you ever decide to pursue higher education, you might think that would be the end of IT, right? Oh, how naive. I was later informed by my mother-in-law, in her wisdom, that she had sold family assets to finance Joe's business. We're talking about the sale of valuable items such as jewelry, vintage furniture, and a family painting to finance a business that existed only in his imagination. Spoiler alert, whatever business he started, if he even did start one, never saw the light of day. The money vanished faster than a terrible investment. Joe returned to mocking his mother within months. I try not to feel smug about being right, but sometimes it's hard. After that whole debacle, things were tense. Joe's aloofness was a welcome respite. Family gatherings turned awkward with Joe sulking in corners and shooting daggers. It was akin to dealing with a moody teenager, except this teenager was old enough to legally consume alcohol. However, as spring approached, he returned, offering sincere apologies and expressing a desire to pursue higher education. I believe that the harsh reality of attempting to succeed independently began to sink in. Perhaps he had exhausted his grandmother's funds. Regardless, his interest in higher education was suddenly piqued. Despite my reservations, we decided to grant him another opportunity. We paid for his tuition, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he would grow up a little silly me. From the moment he started college, Joe's attitude towards us changed. Gone was the friendly kid we once knew, replaced by a young man who acted as though we had personally offended him. The audacity of us, right? Every interaction became a struggle. If we asked about his classes, we received curt responses or one-word answers. If we attempted to express interest in his life, he accused us of being intrusive, forbidding us from inquiring about his grades, as if we were demanding state secrets. It was evident that in Joe's mind, we were no longer family. We were merely ATMs with legs, dispensing money without any influence. In his life, the warm, loving relationship we once shared with him was replaced by cold formality and barely concealed resentment. Now, let me tell you about Justin. If Joe is a handful, then Justin is a whole suitcase of trouble. While Joe at least pretends to be civil, Justin often disregards the protest. He is rude, entitled, and appears to derive a perverse pleasure from provoking others. Justin was known as the wild child, while Joe was more discreet about his misbehavior. Justin was openly rebellious, frequently engaging in confrontations with teachers and displaying a disregard for rules. While suggestions that applied to everyone else were often dismissed, Justin's approach to parenting was characterized by permissiveness. He would make excuses for his behavior, claiming sensitivity or misunderstanding, while the rest of us were left to manage the consequences of his actions. A few months ago, I was celebrating my 17th birthday. Fiona invited us over for dinner. Despite my reservations, we attended, hoping that she had matured. The evening was awkward, to say the least. Joe was there, as usual, giving us the cold shoulder. Fiona was flitting around, trying to pretend everything was normal. And Justin was holding court, basking in the attention like a smug little prince. But then, out of nowhere, Justin decided to take center stage in the most appalling way possible. A 17-year-old boy, who had been supporting me for years, looked at me and asked, "How could you find me attractive when you've made me ugly?" I felt as though I had been slapped. The room fell silent for a moment. To my horror, laughter ensued. Even my mother-in-law, Fiona, joined in, seemingly unaware of the profound hurt caused by the remark. Neil was the only one who seemed to grasp its utter inappropriateness before I could even process what had happened. He then added, "It's hard to believe how anyone can find you attractive," as if delivering the punchline to a particularly clever joke. I have never valued myself based on my appearance, but hearing those words from a child I had raised in front of my entire family was like a punch to the gut. Neil, bless him, turned red in the face, a color I had never seen before, and for a moment, I thought he might actually throw me out of the house. He demanded an immediate apology. However, instead of apologizing or showing any remorse, the individual defended himself, claiming it was merely a passing thought in an attempt to lighten the mood. He argued that nothing says happy birthday like insulting someone, and it was just a joke, according to Justin, who rolled his eyes. "Why are you so sensitive? Can you take a little teasing?" The most disappointing part was when Fiona, looking to intervene and discipline her son for his blatant disrespect, merely shrugged it off. "People can have opinions," she said, as if her son had commented on the weather or not, her old insults at a family member. I could see the conflict on Fiona's face. She knew Justin had crossed the line, but she's always been terrible at confrontation, especially with her kids. It appears she fears that if she sets boundaries, they will cease to love her. Consequently, she allows them to act without consequence, as if that were the only option. That was the end of Nail. He stood up and said in a voice that could freeze lava, "We are leaving. We will not engage in any further conversation until you all apologize for this disgusting behavior." As we were walking out, I could see Justin and Joe exchanging looks, grinning, clearly enjoying the cause. It took every ounce of self-control not to lose it, right? Instead, I walked out, determined not to let them see how much they had gotten to me. But inside, I was a mess. Years of insecurity that I thought were long buried came rushing back. That night, I found myself crying myself to sleep, feeling betrayed by the family we had so diligently supported for a week following the birthday fiasco. Despite our efforts, there was no communication from Fiona or the boys, no calls, no texts, not even a simple email. It seemed as though they were hoping that by ignoring the situation long enough, it would simply vanish. Exactly 7 days after the incident, I returned home to find Fiona and my mother-in-law engaged in a heated argument in our living room. They were there to apologize, but it was evident from the moment I entered that their primary concern was maintaining the financial flow rather than addressing Justin's behavior. Upon my arrival, Fiona immediately began with excuses, claiming the boy was merely a child, as if 17 was too young to comprehend basic human decency. You know how boys are at that age. They say things without thinking. My mother-in-law attempted to intervene, but her intentions were misunderstood. The situation was trivialized by their inability to comprehend the gravity of the incident. It was akin to discussing a total stranger who made an embarrassing remark in public, not a nearly grown man who deliberately insulted me in front of the entire family. Fiona claimed that she scored just in after we left and felt guilty. However, amusingly, Justin himself was nowhere to be seen. It appears he felt too guilty to confront me in person and instead chose to apologize through Fiona, who avoided eye contact, mentioning that he had a prior engagement with friends but felt genuinely remorseful. The justifications for his behavior were lighthearted. He's just a raging teenager. He doesn't know his boundaries. It was just misplaced humor. I apologize, but it is not acceptable for teenagers to act with complete disrespect. If someone is unaware of their boundaries at the age of 17, it indicates a significant failure in parenting. Each pathetic excuse only served to increase my blood pressure. I said, let me get this straight. It seems that he did not feel so terrible about his actions that he could not be bothered to come here and apologize in person. Fiona, at least have the decency to look. He's working on expressing his emotions better. He mumbled, expressing his emotions. I couldn't help but laugh. He expressed them pretty clearly at the party, didn't he? My mother-in-law jumped in, clearly trying to smooth things over. She said, patting my arm in a way that made me want to scream. What's done is done. Let's put this behind us and move forward as a family. I looked at Neil, hoping he would back me up. He acknowledged my anger, but he was attempting to maintain peace. I finally said, this is the last time. If anything like this happens again, we're done. No more financial support, no more family dinners, nothing. Are we clear? They expressed relief, acknowledging that they had narrowly avoided a significant issue. However, as they departed, I couldn't help but feel that the matter was far from resolved. Despite my reservations, we proceeded with Joel's subsequent session fee. We are aware that we are being taken advantage of, but we felt a sense of obligation to fulfill our commitment for the time being. Additionally, a small part of me hopes that college might serve as a wake-up call for Joe, compelling us to unite for a period. The situation appeared to stabilize. Joe was occupied with his classes, while Justin's activities remained uncertain, but at least he refrained from insulting me directly. We found ourselves in a tense yet passive-aggressive state, akin to a Cold War, with more passive-aggressive Facebook posts. I endeavored to engage with Joel by inquiring about his studies and his adjustment to college life. Although his responses remained cool and distant, at least he was communicating with us. While the financial support was modest, it was significant. The midterm grades arrived, and it was made clear to Neil and I that our financial support was contingent upon maintaining a specific GPA. It was not an unreasonable expectation. We did not demand straight A's, but rather proof that he was taking his education seriously. When we inquired about his grades, Joe hesitated, offering excuses about challenging professors and ambiguous expectations. Eventually, after much persuasion, he acknowledged that he was failing classes and barely passing in the others. I was furious, not only at the grades, but also at the dismissive manner in which he treated our concerns. It was as if he expected us to continue working despite the financial strain. Without any questions, I inquired, "What happened? You were excelling in high school. Why did you struggle in college?" Joe shrugged. College is different. It's more challenging. Have you attempted to engage with touring or consult with your professors? The last another drug didn't think IT was necessary. We spent the next hour attempting to diagnose the issue and devise a solution, but IT was unresponsive. Joe offered excuses but failed to propose any solutions. Neil concluded, "We are not here to punish you. Our goal is for your success, but we require your effort. If you are facing difficulties, do not hesitate to seek assistance and utilize the resources at your disposal. However, if you are unwilling to invest the necessary effort, we cannot continue to allocate funds indefinitely." Joe threatened to interrupt me, which was quite rude. "It appears that your support comes with certain conditions, doesn't it?" I was utterly surprised by what I heard. "You mean like expecting you would actually attend your classes and do your work? How unreasonable of us." The conversation then progressed from there. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Neil and I were left sitting in stunned silence, pondering how things had gone so awry. Fast forward to last week. We were celebrating Neil's grandfather's 75th birthday. The entire family was present, including Fiona and the boys. I wore a dress with a deep neckline, as I am 39 years old and not dead, and I will wear what I damn well please. From the moment we arrived, I could sense Joe's gaze on me, not in a mocking manner, but in a way that made my skin crawl. These boys, barely men, were openly ogling me. I attempted to ignore it to enjoy the party, but their behavior was impossible to overlook. It reached a climax when I was giving a toast to Neil's grandfather. Upon concluding my speech, I observed Joe and Jack sharing a smirk, seemingly amused by something that involved me. Later, as I passed by them, I heard Jack grinning while directly staring at me. It felt like being back in high school, dealing with boys who had never been taught to respect women. Except these weren't strangers, though. These were boys. I had been supporting their education, and I had had enough. I confronted them on the spot, asking what was so funny. They froze, taken aback by my directness. Joe attempted to dismiss the situation, insisting that their actions were merely playful and had nothing to do with me. I responded by warning them to be mindful of their behavior and to leave. As I walked away, I heard Joe's derogatory remark, "What a slut." Following the lighter incident, they all apologized and denied involvement, babbling about seeing something on a phone while Joe tried to gas me, suggesting I'd been method due to the music. I was prepared to intervene when Neil stepped in. By then, the entire family had gathered, and the situation escalated into a heated argument. He said, "Situation." Joe denied everything and changed the story. Fiona and my mother-in-law looked at me as if I was the one causing problems. I am aware of what I have heard, and I am profoundly disappointed by this behavior. Despite our efforts to assist you, this is how you choose to respond. Fiona, please join us, as she is always prepared to defend her cherished children. You're overreacting. They're just kids having fun. I laughed. Joe is 20 years old. He's not a kid. As an adult, he should have known better, and justice was not far behind. We did not want to ruin Neil's grandfather's birthday, so we allowed you to go for the moment. However, the rest of the evening was tense and uncomfortable. I could feel Fiona and my mother-in-law's eyes on me, judging me for daring to call out the boys' behavior. As we were leaving, my mother-in-law pulled me aside and suggested, "Perhaps if you dress more appropriately, the boys would be more respectful." I was done. "Excuse me." She gestured to my dress. "You're not as young as you used to be, dear. Perhaps it's time to dress your age." I was utterly shocked by what I heard. Not only was she excusing the boys' behavior, but she was also blaming me for it, as if my choice of dress justified their disrespect. "I dress for myself, not for anyone else's comfort," I responded. "If you believe that my attire justifies their actions, then you are complicit in the issue." I left before he could respond. How had we come to this? How had the family we had worked so hard to assist turned against us so completely? The following morning, I received a call from Monica. She learned about the incident and expressed her anger on my behalf. "I cannot believe that," he said. "After everything you and Uncle Neil had done for us, she suggested I cut the boys off completely, which, to be honest, was exactly what I had been considering." He argued that they were mature enough to understand the consequences of their actions. That night, Neil and I engaged in a lengthy discussion. We reviewed all the events, from Joss's failed business venture to Justice's insults, culminating in the latest incident. We reached a consensus that we had had enough. We cannot continue to enable their entitled behavior. These boys clearly do not respect us or appreciate the support we have been providing. Why should we continue to invest in their future when they show such a disregard for basic decency? So here's where we stand. We are seriously contemplating halting financial support for Joe and Justin's education. While I harbor a sense of guilt for potentially jeopardizing their futures, a more significant part of me believes that they require this wake-up call. Understanding that actions have consequences is a crucial lesson that they should learn at this juncture. We do not intend to sever all ties completely, as they are still family. However, we are no longer willing to provide assistance. If they seek our help in the future, they must demonstrate a commitment to change, understanding the value of hard work and respect. I understand Fiona's distress, as she has been counting on our support. This situation will undoubtedly exacerbate her challenges. However, it is crucial that he eventually assumes responsibility for his son's actions. She cannot indefinitely make excuses for them. Regarding my mother-in-law, I am certain you will have prepared to discuss our decision. However, I am no longer willing to carry the burden of her enabling behavior, which I believe significantly contributed to the boys' current state. Am I the last person who wants to cut them off? I understand that this post is lengthy, but I felt compelled to express my thoughts. I appreciate your time and any advice you may provide. Firstly, I would like to extend my gratitude to everyone who took the time to read my original post and offered their support and advice. Your comments have been instrumental in validating our feelings and have provided us with the courage to take action. Neil and I have made some tough decisions, and I wanted to share what's happened since my last post. After much discussion, Neil and I decided to withdraw the financial support we've been providing to Phil on his boys. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but after everything that's happened, we felt it was necessary for our own mental health and to stop enabling their behavior. Neil suggested we wait for them to reach out to us before breaking the news. Let them come to us. He said, "We don't need them. They need us." So we maintained radio silence, waiting to see how long it would take for them to notice our absence when they weren't getting anything from us. It turned out that we did not have to wait long. After graduating from high school, he decided to attend a private design college, which required a tuition fee that would make one's eyes water. Despite everything that had transpired, he approached us with a little humility, perhaps with a phone call, a visit, or an apology. No, that was not the case. Please send an email with the details of the chosen college and a payment link. That's all. Greetings, Uncle Neil. It appears there has been a lack of acknowledgement regarding the issue between us. It seems like we are merely being treated as an educational ATM, as there was no response to our concerns. The audacity of his child's IT department is akin to the incident of his grandfather's birthday party having never occurred. Perhaps in his entitled little mind, I was deemed insignificant. 2 weeks after Justin's email, my mother-in-law called Neil. Her voice was sweet as honey when she said, "Honey, Justin has been waiting for your payment for his college tuition. It seems you've missed reading an email." I was close enough to hear Neil's response. And let me tell you, I've never been prouder of my husband for who he is. I don't know him. A moment of silence ensued on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the gears turning in my mother-in-law's head as she tried to process this response. Finally, she said, "I got it. You're still dwelling on that insignificant matter. Didn't the boys clarify that your wife must have heard what they said?" Her words caused my blood pressure to rise. Trivial matter, my heard. That was the same gaslighting, the same minimizing of their behavior that had gotten to this point in the first place. Neil, bless him, did men's words enough of the bullshit? He said, his voice firm. We've made a decision to cut them off completely. We do not know who they are or what their future holds. Frankly, we do not care. My mother-in-law's tone changed instantly. The grandmotherly concern was absent. "You can't do this," he said, expressing disapproval of the trivial conflicts that were disrupting their lives. You need to be the bigger person here. Forgive and forget." The response was brief and to the point. "No, thank you." Within minutes of Neil's call, he hung up, concluding his conversation with his mother. Fiona then began inundating Neil with numerous phone calls and texts. Neil advised me to ignore the calls, but I managed to read some of the texts. Their apologies were filled with promises to have the boys apologize in person and to ensure they did not lose their education. Neil's response was straightforward. "It's too late. You should have woken up from your slumber long ago." The next day, Fiona and my mother-in-law arrived at our door unannounced. Neil greeted them, with me standing by, prepared to intervene if necessary. Neil warned, "We do not welcome disrespectful individuals into our home or our lives. You should leave." Fiona's response was a burst of tears, followed by an apology. She saw the boys were truly sorry and requested another opportunity. Neil's response was perfect. "If the boys are truly sorry," he said, "why are they here apologizing themselves?" That's when my mother-in-law decided to weigh in with her 2 cents. She acknowledged that the boys were young and hormonal, suggesting that this excuses their behavior. However, she emphasized that adults are aware of the consequences of their actions and should be mindful of their behavior. We cannot allow them to pay such a heavy price for their childish jokes, their career, and their life is at stake. Something within me snapped. All the anger, Hurt and frustration I had been holding back erupted, driven by the childish jokes. I said calling me and a fucking slide is not a childish joke. It's manipulation and cruel. Gaslighting me and trying to make me look crazy in front of everyone wasn't a joke, duh. The behavior was manipulative and malicious. Commenting on my appearance was not a joke. It was disrespectful and hurtful, duh. I took a deep breath, attempting to articulate my thoughts, but the words just kept flowing. You inquire about consequences? This is precisely what they entail, duh. For years, we have enabled their behavior, making excuses and minimizing their actions. I feel sorry for them, as they will suffer due to their mother's poor parenting. But that is no longer our responsibility. They will face a lifetime of struggle if they do not alter their attitudes. This was Fiona's responsibility, not ours. Fiona and my mother-in-law, with their mouse gap, they looked at Neil, clearly hoping he would intervene on their behalf. But Neil stood firm, backing me up completely. He said, "It's time for you to leave." I experienced a profound sense of satisfaction when I closed the door in their faces. Although IT may not have been mature, it felt right. That evening, we received a call from Monica, who had heard about our decision and wanted to express their support. They fully supported our choice. "You should have done this the first time." He said they've gotten away with this behavior for far too long. Monica recounted that Fiona had called her, expressing concern that I was at fault for potentially turning the family against them. However, instead of the sympathy she sought, Fiona received a scolding from her daughter. Mom wanted me to fund Justice College tuition and cover what's left of Josta. Mona expressed her disbelief, suggesting that IT needs to stop babying the boys and hold them accountable. Fiona did not respond positively to this suggestion. She accused Monica of being my pop and told her she needed to stand by her brothers. Monica's response made me proud all over again. "I've taken my stand up," she informed her mother, "and I do not wish to be associated with individuals who engage in slut-shaming women and exhibit such disrespect." Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between Monica and her brothers. This young woman demonstrated incredible courage by standing up for what was right, even when it meant going against her own family. Joe and Justin, on the other hand, were entitled and cruel, expecting the world to cater to their every whim. This also made me question Fiona's character. She implored us to forgive her sons, asserting that they deserved another opportunity. However, she was secretly undermining them, spreading negative rumors to anyone who would listen. Furthermore, she was attempting to force her daughter, who had just embarked on her career, to assume the financial responsibility for her brother's education. The hypocrites, why was sagging? Why can't they take out loans if they're so keen on studying? I asked Monica, though I had my doubts about their actual interest in education. Monica's laugh was bitter. "They are not particularly interested in studying," she said. "Instead, they are drawn to the college lifestyle, the parties, and the freedom. They simply do not want to have to work for it." Neil and I spent the evening discussing all that has transpired. We reaffirmed our decision to cease financial support for the boys. It was not about punishment, we agreed. It was about establishing boundaries and refusing to enable behavior that contradicted our values. Neil emphasized that we provided every opportunity, but we cannot force them to take advantage of those opportunities or to treat us with respect. I noted that we have done our best. I said that whatever happens now is on them. Only time will tell. One certainty was that we would no longer serve as their financial lifeline. If they sought our assistance in the future, they would need to exhibit genuine change and remorse. To be honest, I wasn't holding my breath. Update 2. It's been a while since my last update, and a lot has happened before I dive into the latest developments. I want to address something that came up in the comments of my previous posts. Many of you have questioned why we initially funded their education, considering their subsequent entitlement and disrespect. The truth is, they were not always like this. When we first decided to assist with their education, Monica, Joe, and Justin were diligent. The Manor children were polite, grateful, and seemed to have bright futures ahead of them. Even Fiona, while never particularly warm towards me, was at least civil. We recognized an opportunity to significantly impact these children's lives. offering them a prospect of a brighter future than their parents experienced. For a period, it appeared that our investment was yielding positive results. Monica, as you are aware, fully capitalized on the opportunities we provided. She worked diligently, attended a prestigious university, and is currently employed by a multinational company in Europe. However, the trajectory of the boys diverged, and Fiona appeared disinterested in guiding them back on course. It was akin to witnessing a slow-motion train wreck. No matter how many times we attempted to intervene, we were unable to alter the trajectory once we had cut off their financial support. The situation escalated, leading to a great deal of family gossip. I heard various derogatory remarks from Joe and Justin regarding my appearance. They suggested that I wore revealing dresses to compensate for my unattractive face and characterized me as mean and unproductive. I had coerced Neil into severing ties with his family. Each new rumor felt like a stab to the heart. These were children I had helped raise, whom I loved as if they were my own. They began spreading malicious rumors about me, fueled by our refusal to comply. Fiona, predictably, orchestrated this smear campaign. When one's security is compromised, it's easier to lash out than to engage in introspection. Despite the hurtful nature of their words, I endeavor to approach them with a degree of skepticism. We have made the correct decision, and no amount of juvenile name-calling will alter that. Approximately 3 to 4 months after our separation, I received a panic call from his mother. She informed me that Joe and Justin had been detained by the police on charges related to illegal drug activities. My heart sank as I listened to Neil's panicked voice. Joe had been arrested, while Justin was in safe custody for further investigation. My mother-in-law was pleading to bail them out to save their lives. The conflict was evident on his face. These nephews, despite being family, had repeatedly demonstrated a lack of trustworthiness and disregard for both us and the law. After a prolonged discussion, he nearly agreed to take them to the police station to investigate the situation. He did not promise to bail them out, but he couldn't ignore the situation either. I understood his decision, even though a part of me wished to distance ourselves from the entire ordeal. Neil was absent for hours, leaving me to pace the house, alternating between worry for him and anger towards Joe and Justin for placing us in this predicament. Upon his return, the expression on his face conveyed everything I needed to know before he spoke. He collapsed onto the couch, expressing his deep concern. Neil arrived at the police station to find Fiona and his mother already present. Fiona was in the history department, maintaining her belief in her son's innocence, claiming they had been framed by their so-called friends. However, the police had a different narrative to share. This was not merely a minor drug possession charge. It was significantly more severe. Joe was revealed to be operating a drug distribution network. He had been supplying banned substances to college students and was apparently planning to expand his business to high schools. It seemed that his intended point of entry into the high school market was correct. Justin, Jesus, I breathed, trying to wrap my head around it all. What about Justin? Is he involved too? Neil ran a hand over his face. Yes, I know. He acknowledged his brother's activities and agreed to assist in expanding the operation to high schools, although no action had been taken yet. Given his age, he is being viewed more as a potential victim of his brother's influence rather than an active participant. I felt sick to my stomach, contemplating the boys we had so diligently supported and invested in, who had discarded their efforts for the allure of easy money and excitement. What would be the outcome of their actions? I inquired. It's a non-available offense, Neil said. They'll have to appear in court. I've contacted our lawyer to get more details, but he trailed off, shaking his head. However, Fiona's suggestion was to hire a high-profile lawyer for Joe to secure his release. She expressed her desire to use our funds to extricate her son from jail, which I found astonishing. After everything that happened, Neil, appearing as exhausted as I felt, said, I told her no. I said we've let the court appoint of attorney handle it. I'm not burning our money on this. When Joe knowingly broke the law, I felt a surge of pride in my husband. It was not easy for him to stand firm in the face of his sister's entreaties. However, he had done so. In the following weeks, our lives were filled with court appearances and family drama. It turned out that Joe had become involved in a drug trade. Following the cessation of his college funding, he perceived IT as a means to sustain his accustomed lifestyle, regardless of the potential consequences, facilitated by legal maneuvers. Despite this being his first offense, Joe managed to evade the most severe punishment. However, he was still sentenced to prison, with the possibility of early release for exemplary behavior. Justin, true to form, managed to square his way out of the worst of IT being a minor, worked in his favor, and the authorities seemed to buy the story that he was more of a victim of his brother's influence than an active participant. He was released from the juvenile detention center after a few weeks with a slap on the wrist and mandatory counseling sessions. Fiona, predictably, was a mess throughout the whole ordeal, bouncing between historical crying fits and bouts of rage, often within the span of minutes. One moment, you would be imploring us to assist in saving her children, and the next, you would be accusing us of abandoning the family during their time of need. The real irony lies in your audacity to accuse me of orchestrating Joe's downfall. Can you believe IT? According to her twisted logic, I had orchestrated the entire drug bust as a form of revenge for the boy's behavior at your grandfather's birthday party. You just couldn't let IT go? Could you? During one particularly heated confrontation, she screamed at me, "You had to destroy my son's life over a stupid comment." I was so shocked by the accusation that for a moment I couldn't even speak. Neil thankfully jumped in. "Are you out of your mind?" He retorted, "Do you honestly believe that the United States has the authority to initiate a drug sting operation, or that you would resort to such measures out of petty revenge? Your son has made his choices, Fiona. It is time for him to face the consequences." The most disheartening aspect was that some individuals actually believed Finn to be a ridiculous tale. I overheard whispers at family gatherings and received sidelong glances from distant relatives. It felt as though I had become the antagonist in their stories, the villainous father who had ruined her life. Despite my efforts to remain unaffected, I cannot deny the pain it caused me. These were individuals who had known me for years, witnessing the extent to which Neil and I had supported Fiona and her children. Despite this, they were willing to believe that I was capable of such addictive and cruel behavior, as if the situation wasn't already dire. The treatment of my daughter during this time was the final straw for me. While she was moving, having the earth to try and help Joe, she seemed to have completely forgotten about her daughter. Monica, with her heart in the right place, returned from Europe as soon as she heard about the incident. She wanted to support her family, to be there for her brothers, despite everything. But she felt that her arrival was not met with the warmth she had anticipated. "Oh, so now you show up," Fiona had said. "Where were you when your brothers needed you? Too busy with your fancy European job to care about family." Monica was stunned. "Mom, I came as soon as I could." She said she wanted to help. Fiona's laugh was bitter. "Help? You want to help? Then why don't you pay for Joe's lawyer or for Justin's therapy? That's what family does, right? They help each other." I was utterly shocked by what I heard. Fiona was attempting to guilt her successful daughter into bailing out her criminal sons, which was manipulative. It was unjust, and that infuriated me. Monica, to her credit, remained steadfast. "I refused to pay for Joe's attorney." He firmly stated that he had made his choices and was responsible for the consequences. He acknowledged the need for therapy, but emphasized that it was his mother's responsibility, not his. Fiona expressed her outrage, stating, "How dare you? After everything I've done for you, I raised you, I sacrificed for you, and this is how you repay me by abandoning your family." Monica responded, "I am not abandoning anyone. Despite the tears forming in my eyes, I am here. However, I will not enable Joss's behavior, nor will I allow myself to be manipulated into assuming responsibility." I asked that aren't mine. That's when Fiona said something I'll never forget, something that I'm sure will haunt Monica for years to come. "Then you're no daughter of mine, Fiona, but get out of my house. I will not see you again until you are prepared to stand by your true family." Monica, in tears, arrived at our doorstep an hour later, carrying her suitcase. Neil greeted her with open arms. We endeavored to accommodate her in our guest room and to support her, but the damage had been done. Fiona had opted for her criminal sons over her diligent daughter, and I realized there was no turning back. In the subsequent months, we adapted to a new, albeit uncomfortable, routine. Joe commenced his prison sentence, with Theo visiting him regularly. Justin commenced his mandated therapy sessions, although his participation was reportedly lackluster. Monica returned to Europe after a few weeks, but not before engaging in an emotional conversation with Neil and me. He expressed gratitude for our unwavering support and belief in her over the years. He also apologized for his brother's actions and for not intervening sooner. As for Fiona, she remained steadfast in her defiance. She persistently blamed everyone, including her sons, for the situation, portraying me and I as the antagonists in her narrative. She conveniently overlooked the years of support we had provided and the opportunities we had extended to Joe and Justin to change their lives. The final blow came 6 months after Joe's sentencing. Neil's mother, my mother-in-law, unexpectedly appeared at Neil's office one day. She declared that she was disowning him, citing his abandonment of his sister and nephew during their most vulnerable times. Despite the challenges, Neil remained hopeful that his mother would eventually understand and accept their choices. However, it seemed that this hope was in vain. We have learned this lesson the hard way. One cannot give their life for someone who does not appreciate it. If the person does not want to see your goodness, they will not see it. We intend to maintain no contact with them for the foreseeable future, despite the difficulties. We will continue to share and cherish our bond with Monica, who has been nothing but loving and grateful to us.